Welcome to the program. I'm Nicole Fröhlich. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has joined European leaders in The Hague today to launch a commission for reparation payments worth hundreds of billions of euros for his country. The International Claims Commission for Ukraine, as it's called, will assess the damage caused by Russia in Ukraine and determine adequate levels of compensation. The effort will be coordinated by the 46-member Council of Europe. While many member states strongly back the plan, some fear legal repercussions. Well, this all follows 2 days of separate talks in Berlin aimed at reaching a peace deal to end the war. President Zelenskyy told the Dutch parliament that the discussions in Berlin and in The Hague were vital for long-term global security.
This is not only about diplomacy, not only about physical security. It's also about making Russia finally learn to live by the rule of law. And it will only work if there is true accountability, if the punishment of the aggressor becomes inevitable. Yes, it's not easy, but it's not as difficult as some may try to portray it.
Well, DW's Jack Perrick is also in The Hague, where the International Claims Commission was officially established today. He spoke to Alain Berset, Secretary General of the Council of Europe, the pan-European human rights body that will coordinate the effort.
34 countries plus the European Union all signed off on the setting up of the International Claims Commission for Ukraine. It's a body which will hopefully allow Ukrainian people to claim compensation for the destruction that has happened in their lives as part of Russia's war against Ukraine. Now, the Council of Europe is the body that is going to be taking charge of this commission, and I have the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Alain Berset, with me. Tell us, how is this going to work? What is the plan? How will Ukrainians get money out of this commission?
I mean, the goal is clear. The goal is to bring reparations for the destruction in Ukraine, for individuals, for companies. I mean, the goal is really to have compensation and reparation. But, you know, one step after another. Today, we are creating the legal framework with the Claims Commission. And it is really a very important step. It appears 2 years after the register of damage, making more concrete what will happen. And then we need to have a discussion on the funding and make sure, yes, it is the goal, to have really reparations for all the victims.
Now, as you say, the funding, where this money will actually come from, is unclear. You don't decide that today. Where do you think it might come from in the long run?
I'm quite sure it will come from different sources. You know, I mean, it will come from different sources, from countries. There is a discussion on the Russian frozen asset, clearly. We have some countries already having decided to have some money for reparation and reconstruction in Ukraine. It could be part, you know, also of the reconstruction and reparation made in the context of the Claims Commission. I mean, this will be the discussion that the states signing the convention and participating to the Claims Commission will have to do in the next few weeks and months. First of all, we need to have signatories, states joining, and then we need to have the ratification process. And it will take some time. I hope it will be fast. We need to have also a strong will of the countries to do this happen. But we need also to have respect for democratic process in the countries joining. And it will also ensure the stability that we need for the Claims Commission and for this work.
International commissions like this are sort of famously, they struggle to have the effect that they want to have. Why do you think that this one for Ukraine will work where others may have failed?
First of all, there is a huge political momentum. I mean, it's clear what's happening today is history. I mean, it's the first time ever that for a convention of the Council of Europe, we will have 34 countries plus the EU signing at the very first day where it is possible to do this. This is a huge political momentum, first point. This political momentum follows what happened with the register of damage, you know. We are doing one step after another, and it takes time, that's true. But the most important thing is to be in movement and to have, reparation and to have accountability at the end. Because, you know, the very simple question we try to answer is, do we want to live in a world where destruction, war, violence and impunity will prevail? Or do we choose a world where rule of law, accountability and peaceful relations and dialogue prevail? That's exactly the question that we have in this context.
Alain Berset, thank you so much for joining us on DW.
Thank you.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy concluded 2 days of peace talks in Berlin, confident a deal on security guarantees for Ukraine is within reach. On Tuesday, he joined allies in The Hague to launch a commission for reparation payments worth hundreds of billions of euros for his country.
More than 30 countries, as well as Ukraine, formally approved the creation of a mechanism to compensate Ukraine for the damage caused by the Russian invasion and the war which followed. While it's not clear where the money will come from, the new commission means Ukraine will be able to seek financial assistance.
Russia will never voluntarily pay for the damage it has done. We already see the attempts to exclude reparations and, in fact, any form of accountability from the potential peace agreement. And this puts a huge responsibility on the international community, including the participants of this International Claims Commission. Together, we must stand up for the victims of this brutal war of aggression. If we do not, more will follow.
The cost of the Russian invasion and the war in Ukraine is estimated to run to hundreds of billions of euros. Critical national infrastructure such as the energy grid have borne the brunt of the Russian onslaught, along with civilian housing. The compensation fund should help Ukraine in the long run. In the meantime, the diplomatic drive to end the war is being stepped up, with European leaders holding talks in Berlin this week and Ukraine willing to give up on NATO membership in exchange for US security guarantees. Speaking in The Hague on Tuesday, Zelenskyy gave this update on the negotiations.
The American partners have received the European reaction. The American side will now contact the Russian side, and after that, there will be a meeting with Ukraine in the United States. I think in the coming days, perhaps a little later. We hope it will be as soon as possible.
Donald Trump believes a peace deal is closer than ever. Zelenskyy, seen here meeting the Dutch King Willem-Alexander, wants any agreement to be tied to compensation, saying Russia, as the aggressor, must be made to pay.
I'm joined now by Yevheniia Kravchuk. She's a member of the Ukrainian Parliament for President Zelenskyy, servant of the People Party. Welcome back to DW, Yevheniia. Let's start with the latest. The Council of Europe today established an international claims commission for Ukraine. They want Russia to pay for the damage it has caused in Ukraine. How meaningful is this move if the biggest issue, the funding, is still unresolved?
Well, I happen to be in the delegation to the Council of Europe. I mean, the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. So I've been since the day first of this process, because it does have to be a mechanism which is practical. Right now, the Register of Damage is already working for the applications, and we already have 80,000 people that filed applications. It could be, the ruined house, or Russians killed a loved one, or someone was in captivity or still in Russian captivity. So these are very, personal things. And obviously, people ask me as the member of parliament, we represent people, when will be this justice, correct? So when we'll see the reparation coming. So it is the big question, but it's something we have to do, is the third part of this comprehensive mechanism, which is the fund. And obviously, the best option is to use the frozen Russian assets. And, it's very good that these Russian assets were immobilized without the need to be, to prolong the immobilization every 6 months in European Union. And European Union is part of this Claims Commission. It's co-signature, and we saw the High Commissioner Kaja Kallas today in The Hague. So it
but
is
there's no consensus on these frozen assets.
People.
Of course. Let's look at the talks that were held until yesterday in Berlin. How were they different to earlier rounds of talks?
Well, it is a process. We are thankful both for United States being a mediator in the process between Ukraine and Russia. And by the way, I think it's more correct to call a Russian war, not the Ukrainian war. Ukraine didn't start a war with itself.
Of course.
Yes, but again, we're thankful for Germany and for Chancellor Merz being in the room together. And then there was the meeting of European leaders that could attend during that day, because Ukrainian security is also European security and vice versa, because Russia is still, planning and rebuilding the army to be able to attack European countries and to be able to face the war in, to put it further. So obviously a strong Ukraine that has a big military production, that has a strong army, is an absolute necessity for Europe to survive in this world, because we see that the world order that we are used to, probably I would say is not existing anymore if we are seriously considering should the country give away the territory, which is a sovereign state with the borders that are recognized by other countries.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are in the same boat with Europe.
And I want to talk about security guarantees, because this is, of course, a major issue for Ukraine and has been until now a major sticking point, especially in dealing with the U.S. European leaders are now proposing a European-led multinational force with U.S. backing as part of the security guarantees that they presented yesterday, or an outline of them. In your opinion, what would make such a force credible enough to really deter Russia going forward?
Well, first of all, it's a strong Ukrainian army. That's why we were fighting so fiercely with because Russians from the very beginning wanted to sort of put a limit on the number of Ukrainian army and on the weapons we can ever produce. So far as I understand, it's not the point. So first, the strong military inside of Ukraine and a big military production. But also at the same time, we want guarantees from other countries, which we see as bilateral. It's not something multilateral. It's something bilateral with the countries to be legally binding. Because just maybe a week ago there was another year of the Budapest Memorandum. Like 31 years ago, Ukraine gave up the nuclear weapons, and the guarantors are still Russian Federation, who were part of guarantor of our territorial sovereignty and attacked us afterwards. So in the case of United States, it's extremely important for any of the agreement to be ratified by Congress. So it would not be just something that one administration takes as an obligation, but sort of legally binding. And with other countries as well, obviously the European countries.
Can there be peace as long as Russia occupies large parts of the Donbass?
It's I will reverse with the German history. The German wall was there for 28 years. The separation of the states were even longer. But people from both sides of the wall and both sides of so-called, the line, it wasn't the border, but the line, they never gave up hope to reunite. And at the end of the day, they reunited. And Germany is a prosperous country. So obviously, Ukraine is realistic. We understand that we cannot return in a military way the territories that are occupied. We cannot legally say that it's Russia, and we legally will say that they're still occupied, as Cyprus has occupied territory for more than 50 years. But Cyprus joined European Union and is trying, to live the life, but with the great wound in the heart.
But just to be clear, because we're going to have to leave it shortly, but you say that an occupation of the Donbass does not stand in the way of peace at this point in time.
Maybe I did not get your question. Just to be correct, Ukraine will never recognize any of the occupied territories as Russian. No Donbass, no Crimea, no Zaporizhia, Kherson region. So any of the inch of Ukrainian territories we cannot legally recognize. But we understand that occupied territories right now, at this point of the time of the history, cannot be returned in the military way by going and killing so many soldiers and needed so much military capability. Maybe later, sometimes in the diplomatic way, but we are realistic that it cannot be just like the never-ending hostilities, because we are losing soldiers, people, kids being killed in the crypts by the missile.
We'll have to leave it there. That was Yevheniia Kravchuk from President Zelensky's Servant of the People Party. Thank you so much for taking time tonight.
Thank you.